Chapter 3. The first look inside of a human ship was full of surprises for Captain Bonnie Red. Captain Archer acted as her personal guide, leading her and her bridge crew through the corridors of the massive warship. The halls were clean and brightly lit, flooded with white light that gleamed off the polished white metal walls. The floor was no different, though it was easy enough to contribute that to being in space where there is no opportunity to get dirty. Curiously, outside almost every door there were plants secured into place, each one growing up and arching over the door itself in a curve to meet the other in the middle. From each plant grew berries that ranged from the size of a pebble to ones that fit comfortably in one of their hands. "What are those for?" Bonnie asked at passing the fifth pair. "Eatin'," Reginald answered. "We genetically engineered some fruits back home, making them larger and easier to grow with less water. We waste nothing on this ship. Plants produce the oxygen we breathe." "Oxygen?" Bonnie reflectively touched the adaptive implant in her neck when she and the entire crew exclaimed the word at once. "You breathe oxygen?" Reginald stopped and turned around to face her and her crew. "Yes? What do you breathe?" "Copexin. Like most species." "You actually breathe flammable gas that corrodes metal?" Bonnie shook her head. "No wonder they call you death breathers. Copexin is barely flammable, but you breathe something that outright explodes in high concentration. How is your species alive? The last time I saw an oxygen-rich world, it was on fire." Reginald chortled, and it was impossible not to smile a little. "It's fine. We like the stuff. Anyways, our plants produce oxygen on their own and give us fruit to eat, offsetting our need to carry supplies somewhat. This," he said, and plucked a large blue fruit, "is a blueberry. They used to be really small, but with a little work, we made them the size of, well, I guess you've never seen apples. But here, try it," he said, and held it out towards his Delamison counterpart. Bonnie took it in hand and brought it to her nose and sniffed it. "No toxins that I can find. And the last I heard, most foods were compatible with Copexin breathers." Her bridge crew was watching her, eyes brimming with expectation, and she opened her mouth to take a bite. A small one, at first. The flavor fairly exploded on her tongue, and her eyes popped. She quickly shoved the rest into her maw, as if it were some ancient prey, and gave not a damn if the juice got in her fur. "I'll buy some," she said at once, and her first mate immediately asked, "What is it like, ma'am?" "Juicy and delicious. Very sweet. I want more," Bonnie said, and wiped her mouth with the back of her arms. "We can arrange to transfer some plant seeds and soil to you. That won't be a problem. A little gesture of goodwill from my planet is good enough for the paperwork," he replied, and then led on. "Your ship is very large. How many decks?" Bonnie asked, unsure if he would actually answer. 127. The flagship of each fleet has a deck representing every country that once existed on the divided Earth before unification. Many decks, one ship, many peoples, one world. That was the motto they used in the design," Reginald answered with a hint of pride. "Not every deck is in use, of course, but we have quarters and storage enough on all of them for refugees, rescues, or any interesting species we find in our explorations or patrols or whatever." Reginald's pride in his ship was clear. Every word rang out with the same confidence echoed in his steps. "And weapons," Bonnie pointed out. "That too," Reginald replied. "We do come equipped for pitched battles, and have ever since we discovered intelligent life in the universe other than ourselves." "We discovered you, as I recall it," Bonnie pointed out. "Ours was a survey ship, and our sensors saw you coming. So ours was a diplomatic ship. We knew you were coming. Yours didn't know we were coming," Reginald pointed out. Then, raising one finger, he pointed out, "Our academics actually still argue over that one, too. I guess it's a trivial matter," he added, and let the matter drop as soon as they reached the end of the hall. "Where is the door?" Bonnie asked, and Reginald chuckled. "Here," he said, and placed his palm on the center. A panel lit up briefly and a small gap appeared, and a section began to rotate clockwise in a slow, steady motion until an opening appeared. Do all your doors go like that? It's very inefficient, Bonnie remarked as she stared at the place the wall used to be. Reginald shook his head. No, just a few. Apparently, the ship designer was a fan of a video game series with doors like this, and one of his conditions for accepting the contract for designing our ships was that he pick a few doors he could do, quote-unquote, his way. By the time anybody realized what he meant, the ship was most of the way under construction, and there was no arguing without losing him. Eccentrics. What can you do? He shrugged it off and strolled through as if it were nothing. But Bonnie's mind was reeling. Doing something his way? Just because he liked it that way? Just doing something unusual? Her mind staggered at the very thought. So, I must ask, Reginald, is he an outlier among your people? And what is a video game? Eccentrics are a kind of outlier. I know a little bit more about how this happened, because this is, he touched the wall of the corridor, my ship. So of course I learned how it was made. But from what I heard, he was very unusual, always throwing in personalized quirks in his work that made it unique. As to video games, easier to show you than to tell you. And he was exiled for this? Or how was he punished after his work was uncovered to have this ineffective and non-standard design? Bonnie asked and stopped in her track, as did her crew when Reginald laughed. Exile him? Punish him? What kind of mad fool stands in the way of genius just because it's unusual? My people learned a long time ago that when someone has talent, it's a bad idea to get in their way. Every spirit is different, and their expression in our crafts, our arts, is what makes us remarkable. Crushing that is a bad idea, and a few extra seconds in front of a door is a small price to pay for that. Reginald shook his head. I heard you all were a little high-bound and rigid. I guess I didn't hear wrong. He chuckled again and resumed walking while Bonnie and her people followed in dumbstruck silence, occasionally plucking a piece of fruit from a plant and munching thoughtfully until they reached a wide arching door, broad enough for 6 to walk abreast. Here we are, he said, putting his hand to the door. There was a faint sound of compressed gas from within the walls, and the door slid into the wall to expose the primary recreational area to the Delamison crew. What in the name of Delamissa is this? Bonnie asked, staring open-mouthed at what laid before her.